is an array by itself present inside another JSON object. So as seen in the above scenario, to retrieve a particular value from a JSON array, we use indexing. So to retrieve the last value from an array, we'll use 0, 1, 2 and 3. So it is present at third index, so I'll use 3. Let me run this. "2020" is printed. So this is a moderate JSON example which consists of a JSON array object and a simple JSON object, right? So in order to retrieve a particular value from the JSON object, you need to traverse using the JSON path. If it is an array, then use the indexing mechanism to retrieve the value. But the syntax remains the same. Get keyword variable name, then starting with $, we entered the JSON file. This is the root. Then from here you can traverse to the child elements by using dot. So one dot refers to one child. You have entered one level down. So array you can call using the index. So let us try with the negative index, because every time if we want to retrieve the latest value from an index will be dynamic. So the JSON array will be dynamic. So instead of indexing from the front, I recommend using -1. So -1 will get you the last record in the array irrespective of the length of the array. So let me run this as well. As 2020 is printed. So now let us see a complex JSON object. Let's say complex JSON array first. So this is one of the complex JSON arrays. Here I am trying to discuss and share with you all the possible JSON objects that you can come across when you try to automate APIs in a project. So once you get used to this kind of simple, moderate and complex JSON objects, then any API you can traverse and retrieve the value that you want to test it, right? So you want to retrieve a particular value from a response, you want to verify if it is a valid one or not. So in those cases, these kind of scenarios will definitely help you. So this is a complex JSON array. So this is an array. So it is a JSON object for sure, ending with .json. It is a JSON file, valid JSON file, and it is an array. So an array is basically a collection of objects, and the object, if you see, it is again a JSON object. Unlike the previous example, we have an array of numbers and one is an integer, simple array. But coming to a complex array, it is a collection of objects, again a JSON object. Okay, so this is pretty complex, right? So let us take 2 examples, or instead 3. I'll use 3. So if you are using such a long JSON, it is difficult to add here, correct? So in those cases, there is a concept called reading the data from the file. So we'll discuss that in the next sessions, but for now just remember that if it is a simple JSON object, it is recommended to provide on your feature file. But if it is very long and complex JSON, then it is recommended to place it in a file and read that file instead of directly placing it here. And how do you read it? Using the read function. And how do you call it? Using the call keyword. So that we will discuss in the next sessions. So this is a simple JSON object, indeed complex JSON array. So we have defined the JSON object here. So let us try to retrieve first value. Let's start with the simple validations. Okay. When some x1 equals to get keyword, then variable name, then dollar. So this is an array, right? So for an array, how do we retrieve the value? We retrieve the value using the indexing, correct? So similarly, I'll retrieve the value using indexing. I'll give 0. So the index at 0, this particular JSON object is present at index 0. So let us print it. Okay, hold on. Let me comment this. Yeah. Now let me run it. Okay, what happened? We got some error, right? No step definition match found for x1 is equal to get response. Okay, what mistake did we do? We did not use the keyword definition. Okay, we need to use the keyword definition if you are trying to assign some value to a variable. So that is the karate keyword. We missed it. So the object which is present at index 1 is retrieved. So in this array there are 3 elements. This is the first element, id2 is the second element, and id3 is the third element. So we retrieved the first element. So far it is good. Now every time the response or the JSON element will be dynamic. So think in real time. So this is the hard-coded value, but in real time when you try to deal with real-time APIs, the JSON elements and the JSON object and the JSON file will be very much dynamic. So in those cases, what I'll do, for example, I want to pick the name of the phone, okay, whose ID is 3. Let me repeat it again. I want to see ID 3 is at index 0, 1 and 2 for now, but the index will be dynamic. Sometimes it may come at the front, sometimes it may come at the second place, sometimes it may come at the end. So the relative key ID 3 will remain same for this particular phone, okay, or we'll do one thing. Yeah, I will go with ID. ID would be the primary key, right? So identify a primary key kind of a thing. A particular JSON element which is unique for each JSON object present in the array. So that object can be identified by unique value. So there will be no case where you can't find an primary key for a particular JSON object inside an array. There will be a unique identifier for every JSON object which is present inside an array. So ID is the primary key, a unique identifier. So I want to pick the name of the JSON object which is present inside the array whose ID is 3. So ID value I know it is 3, but name I don't know. I want to validate the name is so and so for ID 3. So in that case what I will do, I need to filter it, correct? So these are the results which are present, and I need to filter the result in order to get my desired output. So if you remember, question mark, let me open this. So this is the endpoint URL, correct? And this is your protocol, and this is your host name or the domain name. This is your path parameter, and you see a question mark here. Question, after the question mark, whatever it is present, it is the query parameter. So question mark, whenever it comes, it implies that it is trying to filter the results that are being brought by this API, correct? So this API will give you the result of all the objects, but you want to filter the results by using ID 3 and 5. So you want to see only the results of ID 3 and 5. So in order to use the query parameter, you are using a question mark symbol, right? Yeah, my point to come here is just to tell you, like, after the question mark, it implies that we are trying to filter the results. We are trying to query the results. Similarly, here there are 3 elements inside the JSON array, 3 JSON objects. So you want to filter the JSON array using a particular condition, right? So in that cases, you need to write an expression x2 equals to get, the syntax remains same, all that changes is the JSON path, dollar, the index you want to filter it, then start with question mark. Okay, question mark, and what is your expression? At the rate id double equals to 3. You want to get this object. So let us see what it is printing. Then print x2. Error.